lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan,
And I'm Manny.
and we are going to be talking about a book that I remember hearing about, kind of has been falling through my radar for years. We're going to talk 1985 by Mark Millar and Tommy Lee Edwards. When I say that I heard about it and it fell through the cracks, even feel like at the time maybe it wasn't talked about as much. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But like
I know it was hyped as hell because
before it came out.
Yeah, it came out at a time when Miller was pumping out a lot of books. If I remember correctly, I probably should have jumped online and done a little research on this. I think they were gonna try and tie it into other books. Like, I mean, you read the book. You know how Clyde is like, the real world's only mutant. I think they were gonna use that to sort of like have him cross over in other properties for a minute, like that character specifically. I don't know if that ever panned out, but
I don't think
I
so.
think was
Yeah, but this came out in 08, so this was probably parting a lot back then. That was
yeah,
probably
I got you.
that was probably like a huge like chunk of my time where I was partying, you know? I mean, I was 21 at that point, so
Sounds about
but yeah,
right.
yeah. But like I do remember hearing, because like, dude, Mark Millar, like we talked about it, dude. He was like one of my favorite writers for a long time. Obviously, I think like maybe when he leaves Marvel, there's a period where he's not producing as much comics. So like
Right.
like obviously there wasn't comics for me to read as much by him. So like it kind of like, and then over time I just like there became so many Miller World stuff that I couldn't keep up. I remember seeing this and like, like the concept kind of grabbed me, but so time goes by, right? I mean, look, we're talking about this 15 years later,
Yeah.
after this book came out. You recommended it, like, let's do this because we were
Yeah.
gonna because I wanted to do more Mark Millar stuff. I was thinking we were gonna do Miller World, but you threw this book out. I was like, all right, maybe I should read
Yeah.
it.
I think this one is I mean, oftentimes people are gonna point to Civil War and
The
the
Wolverine.
Ultimates and the Wolverine like as like the big heavy hits he did at Marvel. But I don't know, this is to me as good and in a lot of ways maybe even a little bit more creative and inventive and fun. So I always wanted it to have more attention than it does, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, he did a couple other things. Did that book Trouble, where he like redid the,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. So I
I
don't know,
remember that
this
one.
this book, like especially the title, like it doesn't really tell you what you're gonna get, really. You
No,
know
and
what I'm
that was
saying?
part of the marketing campaign
And I think
when it
that,
was coming out. It was just like, what's it gonna be? The logo was out, so like the logo itself has a very like Star Wars sort of like '80s movie feel to it. So like
well, yeah, look at some
we'll
of
get
these
into that,
covers, dude. Like,
dude. And I remember, I mean, it was just such a beautiful looking book.
yeah, no,
I don't even know
it's
if it's collected currently.
I'm not sure. I mean, you can see like I bought the single issues. That's what I
Yeah,
found online. So but yeah, I think it's a really cool concept. I think I posted about it right after I finished the first issue. I post on social media and like people were responding like, "Oh, I love that book, blah blah blah," you know.
yeah,
Yeah, the first issue grabbed me, dude, and I was all in. It feels like a Steven Spielberg movie. I think we were messaging each other. We were talking about
yeah.
that. But yeah, it opens up. I love the first panel, dude. It's Stan and
I
Jack.
mean, yeah.
It's Stan and
The
Jack. It
first
says
panel is great. Yeah,
in 1961, Stanley and Jack Kirby created the Marvel Comics universe, or so they thought. Like, if that doesn't, I don't know. I immediately like started getting excited after just
yeah,
reading those two like captions, and
yeah.
then we flip and you see it's Doctor Doom, right?
Yeah,
Secret
and we're in the
Wars.
Secret Wars. Yeah, yeah. In case you haven't read it or don't know anything about it, the whole idea behind 1985 is it takes place in 1985 in the real world, and characters from the Marvel universe start appearing in the real world. And this one kid he's a comics fan. Obviously, he's the first one to realize that these are people from a comic book universe. And then the story gets a little crazy from there, and there's an explanation as to why, what's going on,
Yeah,
and all that. So
I love okay, so you have the first page, Stan and Jack, then you have the next two
yeah.
pages, you're in Secret Wars, you pan out, it's the little kid, he's reading issue 10 of Secret Wars.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's the it's the dialogue in the shop this is when I'm like, okay, I'm here for this book. I like already fell in love with the book.
I
You
love
have,
all the Easter eggs in the shop too. In the
oh dude,
background, there's
there's
like
so much
Ghidorah
detail.
back there. You see Jaguar right by the kid's head. You know, like dropping some Godzilla love right there.
Yeah, dude, Tommy Lee Edwards is fantastic, dude. He does
Dude,
such a
he's
great
an
job.
artist that like you know, he doesn't work as much, you know, so you know you tend to not be you focus on him. But when you look at his drawings and his line work, bro, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So I just gotta call out some of this dialogue because my God, this dialogue is
Yes,
fantastic. So
yes,
he's asking, he hasn't been picking up the book, so he asks if you got any left. He's like, it's probably the most popular comic book of the last 10 years, little man. Demand is so high, you either pre-order this title or you go home with Dazzler.
yeah.
And
I love. It made me chuckle. Yeah,
yeah, so and then he's talking about like, you know, I might be able to make a few phone calls, but backies on a series like this don't come cheap. And it's just so ironic that he's saying this because with the exception of issue 8, these are fucking dollar bin comics now. You
yeah.
know,
I
you can
mean,
find
yeah,
all of these issues minus 8 with the Spider-Man, you know, black costume.
yeah.
Um, and then you know, like it goes from there, and he's like, put me down for all the issues so far, pre-order the rest, and Daredevil 2 if Frank Miller's coming back. And then you go to this other employee in the shop. So you have the guy that's like all about trying to make the money, knows more of the superhero stuff. And then he's like, and he just says, oh, the Marvel Zombies Enlist, another brainless wonder. Why don't you spend your money on something that's actually going to advance the medium a little? You never heard of Love and Rockets? You never heard of Cerebus? I
Yeah,
mean, and then he said, pardon me, Mr. Gary Groth in training, but I believe you have shelves to stack. So I just think that it's like, this is like, unless you are a fucking real die-hard
comic.
comic book fan,
Yeah,
these little things you're not even going to pick up on. Like
yeah.
if
Because
I,
you're not. I mean, Gary Groff
Gary Groth
name
is,
checking. You
that's
know, like
like,
yeah, that's a big one, man.
that's a
You know,
deep
like
cut right there, dude.
yeah, you know, if you've never read the Comics Journal or like you know anything from Fantagraphics or anything, you don't know who that is. You know, like
Exactly. And then just like calling out two of the greatest indie series of all time, Love and Rockets and Cerebus.
yeah,
Now I would say Love and Rockets is better. Cerebus, I won't get
the
into
less
it.
said the better. Yeah, I won't
Yeah,
get
I
into that.
won't. I'm not going to get into him. But yeah, I just it's stuff like that, dude.
And
That just
it goes to show you, it goes back to what we've always said about Mark as a writer is that like he is someone that loves comics because you know he writes these big mainstream, big concept ideas, but here he is name checking, you know, Gary Groff and Love and Rockets. Like, you know, he also read that shit and he also is a fan of that stuff, you know, like he's just a fan of the entire medium.
comics in
And
general.
this
Yeah.
is one of those projects that's like a love letter to comic books.
So and then from there, dude, like you know, like typical typical kid that's into comic books,
Yeah.
you know, kind of a loner. Because I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, yeah, I didn't have a lot of friends that read comics. Actually, I don't think I had any friends that read comics. Maybe one in like second grade when the Sonic comics first started coming out with
Yeah,
Archie.
met some later in middle school. Like in elementary, like my best friend was really into Star Trek. I mean, we were both geeks, but I was always more of the comic book nerd, you know?
Yeah.
Like it
So
was
I
very
was always
solitary
alone.
for a
Yeah.
while.
I was
Yeah.
always alone, dude. It's not what it is now with how many comic
Yeah.
book people you know I know. So I love this, you know, and like there, yes, there is gonna be superheroes, but it's mostly this story of
Yeah.
and you know his dad and stuff and like the mystery
Yeah.
of what's going on. And his dad reminds me of Jeff Bridges from the
Yeah, you know what? Now you mention it, yeah. Or yeah, I
he looks
totally.
exactly like the Big Lebowski right there in that
Yeah, it
panel.
does. Yeah. If this was gonna be a movie, that would actually have been a good choice. A
So
little older than now, but yeah,
all right, so
totally.
he's coming up to pick up his kid. Obviously, his parents are divorced. So he's talking to the new stepdad. Oh, you got a new Cadillac, blah blah blah. And he's like, so he has to tell his kid that he had to sell his car, stuff like that. So he's obviously he hasn't had an easy life. You know,
No,
just
yeah.
you can tell. You know, just from these few pages. And then they go over to this fucking house in the woods. They're walking and stuff, they're talking, and this house looks fucking very unique to say the least. I
Yeah.
fucking love.
It's like a weird Victorian house in the middle of
Yeah,
this town, you
in the
know,
middle
like
of
in the
the
middle of
woods.
the woods.
So, and then, you know, as they're out there, he's talking about his friend that used to live there and how they used to read comic books together. And this fucking guy comes out with a box full of comics. And then they're looking through it. And this is like my dream, dude, of what happens to them. And what they decide to do with these comics upset me so much. they're like, oh man, these things are worth a fortune. Then you got number one Spider-Man, X-Men, Hulk, even the Fantastic Four. And then he looks through the window, or no, the old man that says it, he says Fantastic Four, the question mark. And like, I didn't pick up on who this dude was right away
Yeah,
because he's
yeah, because
not,
it's. I mean, once. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
because it's hard to kind of differentiate it. And then even in that top panel on that page that I'm talking about, like you see a silhouette of somebody, and even then I didn't really get who it was. And then you pan down, it's Red Skull, and
yeah,
immediately you're like, what the fuck is that? The dad is like, you can't give us these comics, they're worth a fortune. Here, they're like perfect, you take them and take them to the store, and so you can like get what they're worth.
which is cool because it shows you that like here's this guy who's had a hard life, like down on his luck, like has no money, but he's not gonna rip anybody off. Like it's a great bit of writing, and it makes the character like you're like this is a good guy, bro. I mean he may have screwed up and maybe a bit of like a slacker, but he's a good man that loves his son and actually has morals, you know.
Yeah, maybe I'm an asshole then because I would have taken those fucking comics.
Yeah,
But
I probably would have too,
but I'm
but
not but I wouldn't have taken them with the like thought of like I want to sell it. I would have taken them with the thought like, my God, I'm never gonna get this opportunity again to get these
I'm
comic
gonna
books.
keep.
I'm
Yeah,
keeping these
exactly.
things, dude.
Yeah,
But whatever, like at the same time, I was like, man, this is like a genuinely good person. Because I will say this. If I was gonna be given the comics, yes. If I saw somebody with those comics and they were trying to sell them, I would be like, look, these are worth money.
yeah.
Like I've even I think I said it at a comic book store where I found a cheap comic and I wasn't gonna buy it, but I was like, hey man, this is worth money. You have it in this like cheap bin, like
Yeah.
I just giving you a heads up. So anyway, so they leave with the comics, or they leave, and now we just get the build out of this kid in his world, very solitary. The mom is talking shit about the dad, saying, like, once again, this is why he is in the position he's in, because he's always like too nice and looking out for other
Yeah.
people. And then you get the news in the background, you hear, right? Like in the you don't hear you see the dialogue coming from the
Yeah.
TV,
6 feet tall with huge green wings,
yeah.
like
And then you flip and you just see Vulture, and it's like, I don't know, dude. I was like thinking of like, what if this really happened in real life?
right, right.
Like what would the reaction be to people? I think it would be this. They're like, this fucking idiot is just dressed in a costume standing on a roof. Like, I don't think anybody would ever think that this was something real, ever.
Right.
You'd immediately think this. He said he's seen Red Skull. Now he's seeing Vulture. So this kid is like starting to realize what the fuck is going
That's the
on.
image you're talking about there, yeah.
And then, he's going back to the house, and as he's spying, dude, who does he see, dude? He sees fucking Doctor Doom. And this is where you figure out that this old dude was Mole Man. And I think they did such a good job of kind of like keeping that under wraps, because if you don't really pay attention to the glasses he's wearing, you can't really tell who he is.
And it's interesting that like the villains they start showing are like the early Marvel villains too. Almost like, Mole Man was the FF's first like villain they fought in issue 1, like
Yeah.
like so this is all Millar is a very clever, meticulous writer. So this is not just like, for let me just throw these characters in. He's, consciously figuring out how to introduce them
Yeah. So I mean,
and
look,
when.
I know I'm just like basically going through the first issue here, but this is like such a good lead up. We've talked about it too. Like, how often do you get a really good first issue that gives you everything you need, everything you would want to kind of get you amped going forward, to continue with either a story arc or to continue on with a miniseries? And this is just phenomenal, dude.
The
Like,
last page of this issue is amazing too.
um,
I love what he says when he runs into the Hulk.
yeah,
He's like, I didn't even see the tree until I hit it. Oh man, but it wasn't a tree. It was bigger. And
so
he talks
good.
about how he could smell the Hulk too. I love that detail where he's like, I smelled, like I'm like, yeah, I guess the Hulk would smell weird. He's a big like gamma radiated being, like.
But what's weird, and I didn't even think about it till right now, is that Hulk is the only one that's not really a villain, but that came through whatever
Yeah,
was, whatever happened. And then throughout, like throughout the, like, I don't need to, and we don't need to go issue by issue, but what a great like setup, and
yeah.
then
You have
and then
he watches the Hulk and the Juggernaut fight, and like I love how
so
like just
good,
by
dude.
virtue of having the kid like be from the real world, like you really see like the over like larger than life like impact that these kind of things would happen if they happen in the real world. Like, like watching a Juggernaut and the Hulk fight, like that would be like this massive like wrestling bout, in the middle of the woods, like just these two big massive forms fighting. Like the scope. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Like he really captures like the scope of what a superhero universe would be like, especially to someone that's never seen one. Like it's like bringing back some of the magic, like,
Yeah.
and it's hard to me. This story is about reading comics and like the love of like a larger than life universe, and like by using this clever, like like story idea, he's making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such like to me, after reading it, it feels like such a like a spiritual successor to like Kingdom Come or Marvels in the sense of having a regular person kind of in
Yeah,
this
be
larger than life world,
with the
Um,
added benefit of it being like a fan of these characters that like to them,
but yeah,
like
but this is goes a step further because obviously, like in those books, like they're firmly entrenched in the superhero world, right? Like
yeah,
it's not weird to them to see superheroes. So like, and then also, but I always like that, like having the viewpoint of us, the reader, through this regular person interacting with this, but doing this and having these villains come in and like you don't even see superheroes
not until
until
like the end, really, like
yeah,
the
I mean,
last 2 or 3 issues.
and well, it's the last two, really, if you think
Yeah,
about it. And it's really
yeah.
only the end of the second to last issue to where you kind of like you get them where he goes into goes into the other world. But I just love like we slowly
And
get
I
like
love when he goes into the Marvel universe, the art changes slightly. Like it
yeah, that
changes to
was
like a
dope.
different looking.
Yeah, no, I mean it's
It's
fantastic.
just like he really also is. It's really also good at highlighting like how frightening some of these characters can be done. Like we're so used to seeing a lot of them just like get their ass beat like left and right, but put within the context of this world, like you see how terrifying they are. Like when Galactus shows up
Oh,
at the end and he's building that machine, and it's just like it's like something like out of like a disaster movie, man. Like you really feel like the epic impact, and then also like when like the lizard is going crazy and murdering people, like the violence in this is about as far as Marvel would probably allow with these characters, without having them like maligned or something in the public eye, because
yeah.
they're going crazy. It's like, what would these villains do if they go to a world where like, bro, the heroes aren't here? Fuck yeah, we can do whatever we want. Like
But I think that it's interesting because yeah, throughout like they start terrorizing the city, right?
yeah,
Like you just start hearing like you'll see like the different news things happening and stuff, and getting the build out of like so that he sees these characters, these villains,
the
but
pacing is great in this series.
but
It's
he
one of
yeah,
it's
it's
yeah,
phenomenal because it just keeps building up,
yeah. The
and
tension just ratchets and ratchets and
he
ratchets
doesn't
up.
want to tell anybody. Finally, he does, and he tells his dad. And then when he tells his dad, it almost like at first when I read it, it made it seem like he's seen this before.
Yeah,
Like this wasn't weird to him. Like he believed him, but he's like he kind of tried to dismiss it.
yeah.
But it's not what he saw before. When you find
No,
out, and like spoiler, like whatever, we're gonna spoil this book. 15 years old. Um,
yeah,
when you find out that then it goes back to him talking about his friend and what happened to his friend because his friend is now in a fucking facility and
yeah,
he looks brain dead, right? Like he's
yeah.
not talking or anything, and it mentions how he's only seen him 3 times in the last 15 years, blah blah blah. And then you get like the boy's dad as a kid with his friend Clyde in the front of the house. They're going through the comics. That's where these comics came from. It's so good, dude. And then from there, like you figure out that Clyde is the world's first mutant.
Oh
And
yeah, it's a real world's first and only mutant. Yeah.
right. So and then things start happening. Clyde's mom thinks
He's
it's
almost like a his powers are all mental, He's almost like a legion or something like that, Like
yeah. And Clyde's mom thinks it's what's it called? Thinks it's what's the
it's
boy?
Toby. Is it Toby?
Thinks it's Toby, yeah.
Yeah.
No, Jerry. Toby's the son.
Jerry, yeah,
Jerry.
Toby's the son, yeah, that's right.
Right. So thinks it's Jerry, but then figures out it's her son, and she fucking bashes him in the head. This story's dark as fuck.
I want to quickly point out this page like where they introduce Sing Fang Foom, and the
Oh
cops are
yeah.
like Chief, we got another incident happening up by the Oak Ridge Lake. It's the weirdest one so far. Well, hurry up and spit it out, son. What's going on? It says its name is Fing Fang Foom. And
Yeah.
then in the background, if you notice, fucking Frogman has been shot and killed,
Oh, I didn't even
or
notice that. Yeah.
Leapfrog. I mean, yeah,
But yeah, no, it's crazy, dude. And and then when you find out, because you keep like, I guess I kind of jumped ahead, but the villains are all referring to like this boss of theirs, right? Because
yeah,
the Clyde's powers are, he's psychic, so he can control
yeah,
them, right? And he's brought them into this world. The ending was so good. It was such a good ending, because why is Clyde doing this, right? What is the reason behind it? And one of it is that his comic books are gone and he wants his comic books back. That's a,
yeah. And this is his brain's way of bringing the comics back. Like
right. And Jerry, like,
literally now. Like
so what does
hyper
Jerry do?
literally.
He goes and buys the short box of the comics and brings it to him to get him to stop and send these ones on. And then you also have Toby going to this rift to kind of get the heroes, and that's you know, that's a
I
side
love that
thing.
Toby got to say Avengers Assemble, and
Yeah,
he's like, "Sorry, Cap."
yeah. I
Again, great images. Bullseye, like when he's killing, like there's so many really great like full page spreads in this. Like amazing stuff.
Yeah, I love that the villains, while the Marvel characters are a part of the book, they're not the main focus. They're just
No,
more, in the background, and they're tools to kind of move the story and kind of be plot devices at a certain point. What I really loved was the ending, and how, in this battle that's happening between the heroes and the villains, Toby's dad basically gets killed. What happens from there is he gets pulled into the Marvel universe, and he's not dead, right?
say yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
fucking crazy,
it's a
because
beautiful ending, man. Like
it's so good, because Toby now writes stories for the Marvel universe, right? And he made his dad, come back to life and put him in a position to be where, because like as a kid, Jerry's saying who his first crush was. He was with some chick he had just slept with, right? As an adult. And he tells, oh yeah, my first crush was a comic book character, Night Nurse. I just thought that was such a funny little anecdote in the middle of the book that
yeah,
pays off at the end, because that's where Jerry wakes up. Oh no, Jane Foster. I'm sorry. Jane Foster was his first crush, not Night Nurse. And then he wakes up and Jane Foster's taking care of him.
I gotta say that when the heroes do come in, it's classic, amazing scene. Like
Oh yeah, the way the shield
everything
just
going to shit,
flies
and then
in.
the fucking shield. Yeah, like, and you're like, oh shit, here we go. And I just love that Doctor Doom is. I mean, Doctor Octopus is like, oh no, they're fucking here.
Yeah.
And then it's the '85 like lineup of Marvel. So like you got the black suit Spider Man. Like to me, like I was about 7 around that time, so I was already reading comics. So like really, really very like important nostalgic moment for me was seeing these specific costumes and versions of these characters. Like you could tell that this is just Mark Miller loved this era so much that it just poured out of him, man.
Yeah, 1985 in comic books was a really good year.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot happened. I think, I was just listening to, Liefeld on his observations, and he did a whole episode
yeah,
on 1985,
yeah. I
which I
listened to
thought
that
was
one too. Yeah,
which was really funny that we were doing this, and I was listening to it as I
as you
fucking,
were
yeah.
as you were reading.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just think that this is, you said it too, like this is criminally underrated, definitely not
Yeah,
talked about nearly enough. I also don't know if it's
yeah. It gets
collected.
overshadowed by all the other great work Mark did at Marvel. Like I said, Civil War, the Ultimates. A Wolverine, Enemy of the State, and Wolverine, Agent of Shield. Those are all great. But like this one is as good as all those. So if you love all that stuff, you should seek these out because honestly, it's a little gem that a lot of people have forgotten about, I guess, and including myself until we started talking about Mark's work again, and it got me hyped. I'm like, Mike, at one point he was one of my favorite writers. I would just pick up anything he wrote. And then I'm like, bro, 1985. I wonder if it still holds up. And I mean, as soon as I started it at the end of the first issue, I read the whole thing in one sitting.
This feels timeless.
Yeah, it does. It's an evergreen, man, and it's
Yeah.
like Marvel really should be pushing this, and it should be like on shelves all the time and in constant publishing because this would also be a great book to give someone that is not a huge comic book fan. Like if they have a passing knowledge of who these villains are and who doesn't now, thanks to the MCU. especially right now, this would probably work like gangbusters, man.
Yeah, no, this is a great book. I hope if it even was collected, which I'm sure it was because they collect
I
everything,
think it was at the time. I don't know if it's if
but
there's like
it's
a
probably not in print
no.
because I'll be the first one to complain about it. Marvel tends to not keep stuff in print, and
It's very annoying.
I've
And then the
never
stuff they do keep
understood
in
it.
print is stuff that is just like really that. Like there's so many other things that they could do. They
See,
have there's I mean Marvel had so much great stuff, man, and they do, like
what's weird to me about it, and like I get it, right? Like storage costs money to
yeah,
have back stock stored, whether it's whatever distributor you have, they're going to charge you for the storage. So I
yeah.
get it, but it's like, okay, well then go reprint it, because there's no way that Marvel as a publisher doesn't know that when their stuff goes out of print, it skyrockets on eBay. If they don't
Of
know
course,
that,
they have to have people employed that look into that kind of stuff.
now the only thing I can think of is that they almost want it to do that so that when they do reprint it, people flood to get it because they're like, okay, now I can get it at a lower price. I don't know. It's fucking annoying to me though, because like there's so
It
many
is
things that I want to read. Like Ultimate Spider-Man, for instance, was out of print for way too long. I can
hmm
understand not keeping the omnibus in print, but come on, dude.
right,
Print
but
the
like the
trades.
trades, man,
Print the
like
trades,
it's
dude.
you're just alienating people at that point because these are titles that would bring in regular like non Wednesday Warrior readers. So like
I don't see why Ultimate Spider-Man couldn't be like sell as much as like Saga, like a volume one of
yeah,
Ultimate Spider-Man. To me, that should be like a book. Somebody's new to Spider-Man. Hey, I just want a Spider-Man book. Good. This is very easy to jump into. Here you go. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I can understand maybe something like 1985. Maybe you wouldn't like constantly keep that in print. I get
right,
that because it's not necessarily going to be for everybody. But yeah, I don't know. I think that this is something that this is for comic book fans. I know
yeah,
you said anybody could pick it up, and I agree with you. I agree that
yeah.
anybody could pick this up and enjoy it, but this is
But
definitely
if you're
a
yeah,
good
if
book
you're a
for comic
comics
book
fan,
fans.
it's like to me, it's just like, kind of like when they redid when J.J. Abrams redid Star Trek and he made it like a little bit more for like like a mainstream audience, but still kept like the sort of Easter eggs and like like inside sort of like references for Trek fans. Like I mean, if you're just a casual like comic book fan or Marvel characters fan, you'll love this. But if you're like us, like a diehard comic book nerd, you're gonna find shit on every fucking page that you're
Yeah.
gonna like chuckle at or like laugh at something in the background. Like it's very dense with its references, and they're not cheesy. Like they work really well because they're coming from a very pure place.
Yeah, no, it definitely
And
speaks to
again, and Tommy Lee Edwards, man, like phenomenal art in this, man.
I
Like it
love it.
just moves. It's fantastic. Like I wish the guy would do more. He's very good at both like small moments and these big epic moments. Like because like this is a very action packed story too. So it moves very quickly.
It does move very quickly, but like you said earlier, like the pacing is just perfect.
It's one of the best examples of pacing I've seen. Like it just it knows when to drop the cliffhanger, when to drop the information to get every. It's very well
I
done,
think
man.
we've
Like
said that though about Mark, that he's
yeah,
really good at doing that. I think regardless
yeah.
of what book we're talking about, I think that that's always the case.
Mark excels at pacing, like very cinematic, like engaging pacing, and it's on full on like display in this book.
Yeah, no, I it's already become one of my favorite Mark Miller books.
Yeah,
I think it just like it speaks to the comic book fan in you,
yeah,
not just a fan of the characters, but as a fan of the comic book medium. I think is what it
yeah. And what
really
it
like.
might mean to you, and like, and I mean, down like the covers, how the covers are like they're still very modern, but like they still have kind of like a 1985 feel
Well,
with
yeah,
like
look, there's
the corner
that.
box. Yeah, like the logo is yeah. It's like
Look at that, dude.
it's a great balance because like it's not totally done to look like a book from 85 because it does have that modern gloss and like the cardstock cover, but it invokes that era enough to give you like the emotional feel that you want to get from this book, which is like a blending of the modern and the new to bring you something special. I mean, I would have loved this. Reads like a fucking movie. Like this would have been a fantastic movie. Like
Yeah, I get that we would probably this will never be adapted because there's
no,
too many
no,
different
yeah,
properties that are in there.
yeah.
And obviously, like, why would they make a movie about this? It's like, why would
Yeah,
they make Marvels? I mean, I doubt they'd ever make that. I think Kingdom
exactly.
Come is even like a stretch. I know James Gunn teased it, like when
Yeah,
he became like the was it president of the film thing or co-president, whatever
yeah.
he
I think it's
is.
co-president. Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like those kind of stories are just so hard when you have so many different characters, and even though it's mostly the villains and like it's only for a short period of time, like, but this would be like amazing story, even if like maybe you change some of the I don't know how you would adapt this, but I feel like this would be such a great movie, and that's why I said it feels kind of like Steven Spielberg, because he tends to do that with certain genres, like almost like he'll make like a love letter to
yeah,
a specific genre, and this is clearly a love letter to the
yeah.
comic
It
book
has
genre.
that '80s Spielberg feel with like the kid, So you got like Goonies kind of
Yeah,
vibe
yeah,
going on there, and
yeah.
ET, like the kid is like kind of the main focal point, and you got his father who's somewhat childlike, in a sense too, like someone who's still very youthful in his views of the world. So I mean, it's great, man. I had forgotten about it over the years, and like as soon as I remembered it, I remembered how much I liked reading it, and I questioned whether it would hold up, and it did. I mean, but then again, Mark's work always holds up,
I
so
agree.
I'm not surprised. And
Yeah,
you should really seek out 1985.
I
It's
agree.
great.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys, if anything we said today sounds interesting, go pick it up. I think it's just such a great book, and I hope people pick it up because of this. It's easy to find. Like
Yeah,
obviously, like I don't know necessarily comic book shops, but I got mine on
yeah.
eBay and it was not
And
expensive
if
at all.
digital's your thing, it is available digitally,
Yeah. So
so like you can get it that way. So
but go pick it
it's
up. It's a great
accessible,
book.
yeah. And dude, you'll read it in one afternoon, and you'll have a fucking great time.
Yeah, I mean that's what I did. I read the first issue and then I had to go do a bunch of shit that day, but then I came back and like I knocked out the rest of the series. But yeah, it's so good. Go
Yeah.
pick it up and make sure if you're not following us, Manny's links will be down below. Comic Lounge links down below as well. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid goes up. And on that note, we're out.
See you next time, guys.